What's up, Chunk Slayers? I saw a post on Reddit that I've seen a few times and I wanted to address because I think that it's a good question and it's a frequent misstep, especially that newer or sort of younger in their maturity cycle MSPs make, and it can cause a lot of pain. And there's just no point in having that pain. So the post in question, in this case, it was a new MSP, and the OP was looking for recommendations for 24/7 outsourcing because they assumed they should offer it. Because that's something they should offer to clients. They don't actually have these clients yet. And the comments were mostly around, well, are you sure you should be offering this? Do your clients actually need it? And I see this with a lot of posts on our MSP where folks are basically saying, I think I'm supposed to do this and I don't really know how to. And then the comments are like, hey, you don't need to do that. Your clients don't want that. So let's talk a little bit about that. So I talked in a previous video about this idea that at your MSP, you're going to have this thing, your operational maturity level, a thing that service leadership came up with a long time ago. They go in through a variety of different conditions and end up giving you a rating on a scale of 1 to 5 around your general operational maturity. 1 being that you're completely engulfed in flames and basically are not doing any business processes, and 5 meaning that every single element of your business has a rigorous SOP that is followed explicitly 100% of the time with an intact accountability loop where you can prove that it's happening 100% of the time. And the idea is that if your OML was a 1, or I suppose lower than a 1, you really don't have a viable business. And if your OML is a 5, then you're probably lying because that's not really possible. And so there's a sliding scale, and we tend to find that, especially as you get into the high 4s, fractional OML points really start becoming important. But throughout the whole scale, fractional points are very, very important. And what I found over my years of growing our MSP was that your clients have a maturity level as well. And so besides all the ICP that we normally look for, what their needs are, their vertical, how many seats, yada, yada, there's generally a maturity level that a client you're capable of supporting is also going to have, and there is an overlap. And if you deviate too far from that overlap, you start to run into problems. So we're going to explore that a little bit because I think it'll help OP and other people answer questions like this. So I made a super janky slideshow in like 2 seconds to illustrate this, so I apologize for the massive amount of jank. But so I went in and I grabbed a typical OML example, real one, from an MSP that is around that 1 million ARR mark. And I wanted to give you guys an idea. So this is sort of a standard OML template. 87 different elements of the business are measured on a scale of 1 to 5. And so the average score from that is a 3.26. As I said, fractional points are super important in OML, but for the sake of just simplicity, we're going to say that this MSP is about a 3.3 OML rating, which is honestly pretty standard for a MSP that's trying hard to do a decent job around that $1 million mark. And to give you guys an idea here, you can see the breakdown of the scoring. So they had 6 1s, 13 2s, 33s, 28 4s, and they had 10 5s. So just to give you an idea around this point, there will be some elements of your business that are on fire, are terrible, that you have a 1 on, and there'll be some that you are doing quite well at a 5. But the bulk of an MSP around this size is somewhere in the middle. And I think this is pretty representative of an MSP at this size. But this is the first thing you need to kind of remember. So this is an MSP that's been in business for a little while, has an established book of business, has established processes, and is now at a point where they're making an effort to refine their maturity. And so in the case of a new MSP, you don't have any of this. Your OML is, somewhere between a 1 and a 2 because you're small. So keep that in the back of your head as we move over to the next slide. So this brings up another concept that fits in here. And so I drew this janky little bullseye chart to kind of give you an idea. So there's a concept of what you think you need to offer given your current size and maturity and your desired clients versus what you're actually able to execute on versus what the clients that actually fit your ICP actually need. And spoiler, it's almost never aligned. So this outer blue ring are the services that this MSP, this 3.3 OML MSP, that they think they need to offer at their current size with their current maturity level. But this inner green ring of the services, they're actually capable of delivering properly at their maturity level. And you notice it's smaller. And this is super common in the SMB space, not just at MSPs. We've talked about before, Dunning-Kruger, how people learn. This is really a result of that concept where you don't know what you don't know. So it's very typical with a smaller business that even if they've been in business for a while, there are things they think they should be doing. And they generally don't know how to execute those things as well as the things they objectively do know how to do. So that's why you have this drift. But then in the middle here, we have the things that the clients that they are actually capable of supporting really well that fit their OML profile actually need. And you'll notice that for the most part, that's a smaller circle. And I exaggerated it a little bit here for visual effect, but most of the stuff they're capable of doing at the maturity level is going to be consumed by clients at that maturity level that they're capable of supporting, not this blue stuff. So let's look at that a slightly different way. So I made this janky Venn diagram to give you an idea here. So of the service execution at your OML versus the perception. So this first circle here we have, these are services that you can offer pretty reliably at your operational maturity level. So these are things you can do well at the size you're at. And then this other circle here, the services that you think you need to offer. And there's some overlap. Of course there's some overlap. And then this last circle here are services that your ICP actually need at their maturity level. So these are your clients that fit your ICP profile that actually need, they have definable business problems they need you to solve within that maturity level. And you'll notice that like there's an overlap here of things you can offer and things they need. And that's your happy client MSP sweet zone. That's all of our clients that are, patching, backups, remote assistance, basic AV security stuff. That's all in this zone. That's stuff they need, stuff we can deliver, stuff that makes them happy. You've got the small orange region here of things they need, things you can deliver, and things you think you should offer that meet perfectly. It's a fairly small area. That's your upsell territory. That's stuff like adding MFA. We know MFA is something they need. MFA is something we can reasonably deliver at our 3.3 OML, and it's something we think we should offer. That's an upsell land. We might have things in there like a BCDR appliance. We might have some things in there like basic compliance services. These are your standard upsell offerings. It'll change a little bit depending on what your MSP is, but nothing here is particularly extreme, and none of this is outside of the realm of what this MSP can offer. You notice there's this blue zone here. And this blue zone is where I think a lot of you get confused, and this poster probably gets confused with the idea of should I offer 24/7 support. So you have this circle of things that you think you could offer, including 24/7 support. And you have this circle of things you're capable of offering. And there is absolutely overlap that your current ICP is not consuming. So you're not wrong that there are things you think you could do that you're actually able to do well at your current maturity level that your average client is not consuming for you and isn't already a defined need at your current client. So you're not wrong in that, but it's a relatively small piece of the pie. And the key is those are different clients. And see how it says find new client zone? That's a different ICP. That's why this isn't in this orange area, because this doesn't fit. While it are things that you can deliver and they're things you think you should be delivering, it doesn't fit the profile of things that your current suite of clients actually need or want to consume. So to be able to move this into the orange or the green territory, you need to change the type of clients that you're bringing on. And we're going to talk about that in a second. And the very last area I want to bring up is stuff that you know, you really can't do that maybe a very small percentage of your existing clients or prospective clients wish you could do. And this is your no zone. This is stuff you explicitly should absolutely be saying no to. So for an example of this might be for a lot of us, low voltage wiring. And I don't mean is anybody in your team literally capable of pulling wire, but it's you're not a cabling shop. And yeah, your clients might occasionally need cabling, but you're not a cabling shop. So what do most of you do in that no-go zone is you outsource it to someone else for those niche cases where these clients actually ask for it. So hope this kind of makes sense. So let's move back over to one final concept here. So I have a chart here of just a generic normal distribution. And in the previous video, we talked very briefly that a normal distribution, if you have a reasonable sample size of a population and you distribute all the data in that sample size, generally it's going to look like a bell curve. So in this case, we have the middle here. This is the mean, and then one line over is one standard deviation. So if we say the mean here is the MSP's OML currently, which we said was I don't know 3.2 or 3.3, then that MSP really is only capable of, and this is stretching it a little bit, of supporting clients whose operational maturity level is +1 or -1 standard deviation of their OML. So that means that if your MSP's OML is approximately 3.3, you might have a shot at supporting clients all the way up to a 4.3 and all the way down to a 2.3. But anything outside of that one standard deviation, you're going to end up finding that either the client's wasting your time. So if they're over here, if they're more than one standard deviation away, these are the clients, they don't pay on time, they have all the problems, they just don't fit with how you run your business, they're too much work for you, they're not profitable, they're frustrating. And if you stretch the other way and start trying to service clients that are, one or more standard deviations away, these are the clients where very quickly the client realizes that you're not a fit, that you can't meet their needs. And that could be from a technical standpoint or an operations standpoint. And everybody's kind of been in both those places. But in the specific, back to over here, of offering services that your average client doesn't need, if you figure that like the bulk of your supportable clients are in this middle area, and we go back to that previous slide with that Venn diagram, and you think about it, there was a very small amount of stuff that we thought that we should be offering our clients that our clients didn't currently need, that our MSP was capable of providing. And that's when you go and find a client that's in this stretch area here, over up to that one standard deviation. Otherwise, your clients really don't need it, and you really shouldn't stress about offering it. So hopefully what you're going to take away from this, and what I hope the OP will take away from this, is that, first of all, this is going to shift over the course of your business as you dial in what you're able to do and how you're able to do it. But there's ultimately going to be a certain level of client that at any point in time you're able to keep happy. And that level of client is generally going to have a certain maturity level that aligns and overlaps with yours. And so when you start looking at services where you start questioning in your own head, how would I go about delivering this service? This service is outside of my normal capability. For example, a new MSP delivering 24/7 support. That should light a red flag for you that there's a good chance that anybody who actually needs that probably doesn't fit that diagram of a client I'm actually capable of supporting right now. And I know that some of you, especially if you're starting out, are going to kind of hit me with that idea that like, well, yeah, if it's just me and just that client, I could answer my cell phone 24/7 if I had to. And I hear what you're saying. And there is a weird thing when you're a sole proprietor, you in a weird way sort of have the ability to mimic a higher maturity because you control 100% of your own variables because you're the only employee. Everything falls to you and is in your brain, but it's not real. That's a mimic chest. That's not a real treasure chest. And what'll end up happening, could you do that for maybe one client? Maybe. Could you do that maybe for 2? That's possible, but that's probably it. And it's not really going to be scalable. And if your goal is to be building a business, then no, your business, you might be able to do that as an individual, but your business really can't do that. So that red flag should go up in your mind that, this doesn't sound like something I would normally be able to do. I'm trying to figure out how to do it. There's a good chance that your current clients that you're able to pull in aren't going to need it. And so that brings me to, what do you do when all of this happens? You've identified that red flag. What do you do next? So I am a big proponent of outsourcing, and I think this is when you need to start looking at that situation in terms of, is this a candidate for outsourcing? And the answer is going to be sometimes. So if we remember back on that Venn diagram, that tiny little red bit of stuff your clients need that you're not capable of providing, or you shouldn't be providing, those things where you already know, I literally can't do it, but my clients are asking for it, that's when I suggest that you find, some sort of local contractor or local person that on a fractional as needed basis you can subcontract out. That's why I use wiring as an example, or security cameras. Maybe you have somebody who is a little bit more advanced than you at configuring a network, and you have them come in and do projects for you, or you have somebody do your cloud deployment in Azure for you that you then maintain. And that can be a really effective strategy for those things in that red zone. But for everything else, you need to then think about, should I even be offering this to begin with? And I would argue that the newer MSP who are trying to land their first clients, the clients that genuinely need you to be available around the clock, are too mature for you to support effectively. And so you're not going to do a great job. You're not going to have them as a referral or a reference, and you're going to be ripping your hair out just trying to tread water. So no, I would not outsource that. I just wouldn't offer it at all, period, full stop. I don't offer that because it's not what you're good at. But as you start to grow, you can start looking for those. Remember, we saw that blue zone of things that you think you should offer and you might be capable of offering, but you don't have clients that can reasonably consume it yet. Eventually that blue zone will move into the green or the red zone. And at that point, yes, absolutely, you should outsource it. And sometimes you also want to break down what the client presents to you as a need and break down if that's actually a business problem or challenge they need overcoming. Because I am here to tell you that end users, and we've all been an end user, but end users and clients, they say some shit. And a lot of what they say isn't real. They say it for the same reason we made this video, because they think they're supposed to say it. And so one of those things that you'll hear a lot of people say is, well, I need 24/7 support. Do you? Who's working 24/7? And when you break it down, you find out very explicitly if there is actually a business problem or not. If they're running production 24/7 and there's a plant manager and a small amount of admin staff that need to run, maybe they have like CMMC tables that are doing, parts checking 24/7, and those run on computers. And if those computers go down, they lose 12 hours of production and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And even though that's relatively rare, if that happens at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, their company's screwed. That's a business problem. And the thing about a business problem is you can put a number around it. You can put doll hairs around how much that'll cost. But odds are, at the size companies that you're going to be working with when you're starting out, they don't have that problem. What that probably translates into is that the owner or the executive you're talking to is thinking, well, if I want help with my nephew tech at home on a Saturday, it would be nice to call someone if I can't log into Etsy. That's not a business problem. That's a vanity thing. And so those are things you need to learn early on how to steer the conversation away from, because you can't support that. There are vendors that will offer fractional versions of what you're looking for, and that can sometimes be a bridge. So in this case, maybe something that does call answering, or just a ticketing system that's available 24/7 that has an autoresponder that simply lets that client know that, hey, we received your ticket and we'll start addressing it at 8 a.m. That might be good enough. But you almost certainly, as a new MSP, do not need to be offering 24/7 support. Hope this helped. Have a great rest of your week. That was a great question to ask.